Well, hey, gang, Jim Jacobus. Welcome to this week's In the Sales Arena Sales Training webinar. Glad to have you guys on board. Let me do something real quick. I did not hear a signal from GoToWebinar that we are live. If you guys are out there and you can hear me, do me a favor, raise your hand real quick. Just let me make sure I'm coming through to you guys. Okay, good. All right. Normally it says something to me and lets me know that we're live. And I either did not hear it, and I know why. Okay, good. Oh, mercy. Gang, first thing is, glad to have you here today. I am really looking forward to our time together today. We're going to talk about something that is very near and dear to my heart, and it's something that I see salespeople struggle with all the time. And I will tell you straight up, you may not struggle with personal accountability at all. And if you don't, it's no big deal. And this may be a total waste of time for you, although my best guess is that you know somebody who does struggle with it, and maybe doing the webinar today will help you help them. Somebody that you know that may struggle with personal accountability. But like I said, if you do struggle with it, it is a huge deal. And so today we're going to talk about it. We're going to look at it really close and have a little bit of fun with it. And again, I might warn you that we're going to go a little deeper today than maybe we normally go. And that'll be a good thing. We'll have some fun doing it, and we'll all learn a bit from it. So first thing is, welcome. Glad to have you guys here. Let me tell you what our agenda for today is very quickly. We're going to talk about personal accountability. And if you remember in our past webinars, or you follow our podcast, or pretty much any of the stuff we've done, one of the things that we do for our clients is we do a lot of benchmarking, assessment, comparative analysis work. In our benchmarking work, we are measuring three things. The first thing is we're measuring behavioral styles, which do not, cannot, have not, will not ever predict performance. They're not a bad tool from the aspect of what we can learn from them, but they do not predict performance. There is no behavioral profile out there that tells me you'll be a good salesperson. I'm working with a client right now that they're using a behavioral assessment. It's a good one. I got to tell you, it's not bad at all. But it only measures behaviors, and they want a high D, high I. If you're familiar with the DISC model, they want a high D, high I salesperson. And in reality is that's not a bad personality profile, but it doesn't predict whether or not they'll do what needs to be done to be successful. But we still measure them. And then we measure what we call 6 workplace motivators. And the most important piece is the core skills and core competencies. Of those, we measure 23. And of those 23, there are 5 that rise to the top. They are resiliency, personal accountability, self-management, influencing others, and continuous learning. Right? So those 5 rise to the top. Personal accountability, when it comes to sales, is the number 2 most important core skill that we measure. And it really is something that is significant. We're going to talk about it today. We're going to look at it very closely. But what I would tell you is, if you look at all of the benchmarks we've ever done that go beyond just the sales side, and we've probably done close to 500 sales benchmarks, but we've done about 850, almost 900 total benchmarks now. If you crunch all the numbers together, personal accountability jumps to number 1 and resiliency jumps to number 2. And interestingly enough, resiliency does not leave the mix just because we're not measuring salespeople. If we're measuring receptionists or managers or things like that, resiliency stays in the mix, which I think is pretty cool. Which means we've got to be able to bounce back from adversity no matter what we're talking about and no matter what kind of job we're doing. And that's the one we covered in our webinar 2 weeks ago. So it's number 2 in sales and number 1 overall. It is personal accountability is very easily defined as I do what I say I'm going to do because I said I would. That's personal accountability. We're going to take a little closer look at that as well. And then we're going to talk about where does it come from and how do we develop, or what can we do about personal accountability. So let me share a story with you. And I'm going to risk being transparent with a bunch of people on the line here. We've got about almost 40, and I see some already still signing in, which is kind of cool. People just now signing in. So we've got about 40 people on the webinar today, and I'm going to risk being very transparent with you guys, but I'm going to tell you straight up. I spent a good portion of my life with very little or no integrity or little or no personal accountability. Now, I have good reason for that, based upon kind of how I grew up, created some challenges for me. but that's not an excuse. And there was a point in time, primarily due to my marriage, my third marriage, if you will, about 18, 19 years ago. Now I take it back, it's been longer than that because Christy and I have been married. Probably about 20 years ago, that I said, look, that's just not who I want to be anymore. And so I'm going to be really honest with you. This is something I struggled with in the past. And quite frankly, now it's become such an important piece to me that if you want to get on my nerves, all you got to do is question my integrity. Like I said, I've worked really hard to develop it and to be focused on it. And so it means a lot to me now. And I'm also very sensitive to other people who lack integrity, but yet I tend to have a soft spot for them because I kind of wonder where it comes from. So anyway, that's me bearing my soul to you to tell you why I think this thing is so important to us and give you a little deeper background about where I'm coming from on it. So I hope that didn't freak you out or make you want to jump off on another webinar or, ruin your image of who I am or whatever. I hope it didn't do that. But that's a reality. I've struggled with it, and I know it can be a really tough place to live, but I'm not that guy anymore. That's the cool part. So here's our personal accountability. It's simple, all right? You do what you say you're going to do when you say it, and if you start something, you finish it. That's as easy as I can possibly put it. Now, it can go a lot deeper than that. We're going to look at it today at about four different levels of what personal accountability is all about. And we're going to kind of see where they come from. What can we do about it? Here's our baby picture for the week. I like using these little baby pictures. They're cute and they're kind of disarming, but at the same time, they get our attention. Personal accountability. I do what I say I'm going to do simply because I said I would. And it's the number 2 core skill for top sales professionals. All right. So there's your baby picture for the week. Now, this whole month, we've been talking about mindset. It's been Mindset May. Our blogs are mindset. All of our podcasts have been about different mindsets. And we have talked about what we call this belief continuum. And I want to just retouch on it again in that our performance and our character and all of our habits don't just come up out of nowhere. They come from a source, and that's our belief system. And so in order to develop a better resiliency, to develop better personal accountability, we've got to start at the belief level. So it's core beliefs create thoughts, thoughts create actions, actions repeated over and over again create habits, habits repeated over and over again create performance, performance created over and over again establishes our character or what we're really all about. Now, a lot of coaching work that I do for some clients, we do a little bit of what I call intervention work. I really love it. It's typically somebody who's failing or running into trouble in their job, and clients bring us in to work with them and try to get them straightened out. I used to work on the habit side and on the action side and the performance side, looking at all the symptoms. I think I shared this with you 2 weeks ago, and it was like a whack-a-mole machine. We'd stop the behavior and it'd pop up somewhere else, and we whack it and it'd pop up somewhere else. And sooner or later, you couldn't whack a mole enough to keep them from popping up all over the place. And I came across this piece of information as I was working on being a better coach and realized if I'm going to stop the bad habits and performance, I've got to look at the core belief side of it all. And that core belief is kind of at the center of these 5 things that make us extraordinary at sales: resiliency, personal accountability, self-management, influencing others, and continuous learning. Really all kind of the core belief about those is where we have to start. So with all of that said, and a quick little review of the belief continuum, let me tell you where I see a struggle. Now, this is not these are not the only areas that I think we struggle in, but this is where I see a lot of salespeople that we work with struggle. All right. You may struggle with some of these as well. First one is just struggle with time. All right. Being on time, managing time, getting where we say we're going to be on time. And I don't know about you, but that's a big one for me. We'll talk about that a little bit more here in a minute or two. But time is one of those things I'm very, very aware of. And I'm also very aware of other people's lack of consideration of others' time. Now, I know I've got a couple of folks on here who've worked with us on our teams in the past. And one of the things that I've always taught our consultants and trainers that have worked with us on some of the projects we've done in the past is every company has a different time culture. All right. And that's their culture. I remember we used to do, when we do work with the guys at PricewaterhouseCoopers, if you tell them we're going to start at 9 o'clock, you'd be lucky to have half of the room there at 9 o'clock, and you wouldn't have everybody there at 9:30. That was just their culture. That's the way they did things. Now, I have a completely different time culture, and we'll talk about that. But that's the way they were. And in reality is they're a client, and I'm not going to worry about that. It's not my job to teach a bunch of grown adults who work at PricewaterhouseCoopers that there's something wrong with them not being on time. That's not my job. That wasn't what we were there to train them on. But I will tell you, I had some consultants that worked for us that when they would be late like that, it'd drive them nuts. And I get that. There's some integrity involved in being where we say we're going to be, but bottom line is that's their culture. And then we did a lot of work with Halliburton. And I remember the first time I ever did a project with Halliburton, we were supposed to start at 8:30 with breakfast at 8 o'clock. I got there at 7 o'clock to set up so that I would have a full hour to get ready. That's my habit. That's my process. A full hour to get ready before I expected them to start showing up, so everything would be done and I could be there to be present, to meet them and greet them and get to know them and everything. Well, I walk in the room at 7 o'clock and half the room is full. And by 7:30, everybody's there. And the breakfast wasn't even ready until 8 o'clock. And I'm kind of going, what the heck is going on? So I talked with them and everything. And they just said, hey, look, we start early. I said, well, hey, if you guys want to start tomorrow morning at 7:30 with breakfast at 7, we'll do that. And you'll get out of here an hour early. And that's fine. I mean, I'm an early morning guy. And they all voted yes. And so the next morning, I show up at 6:30 to get ready for a 7:30 start. And there's already half the people there. So time is different for everybody, but from the standpoint of us as salespeople and as business owners, and again, we've got a real wide variety of folks on the webinar here, time being something that we are committed to, that we are accountable for, is not an option. And I'm going to paint it that way today for us and give you some ideas around that. So I see one of the struggles being time. Do me a favor. If you struggle with being on time, raise your hand for me. Let me just see you raise your hand on the dashboard there. Just want to see who all struggles with time. Okay, yep. All right, appreciate your honesty. That's cool, yeah. All right, awesome. Okay, yeah, I think it's one of those things that, particularly for busy people, time can be a struggle and it can be difficult for us. So thanks for being transparent about that. I really appreciate it. Now, the second place I see salespeople struggle is in this area: over-promising and under-deliver. All right, we always want to do more. We want to create more. We commit. We do all these kinds of things to try to take care of our struggle, to give our clients what they want. And it's one of those areas where I see a lot of salespeople that have a hard time. And again, I wish I could tell you I didn't have a hard time with this one, but I do. So this is another area that I think we want to kind of take a closer look at today as well. So over-promising and under-delivering. And then we're going to get a little deeper, all right? This is where I start seeing salespeople overstating, or what I heard somebody use the term a few years back called puffery. And that's where we oversell what it is that our product does. We oversell what it is our service does. And for my solopreneurs out there, my speaker consultant buddies, we overpromise or overstate what we think we do for a customer. And I know that I see this a lot, and I really worry about it, because once we've done that enough and we establish a brand with our customers or in our business that we're somebody who overstates what we do or overstates what a product or service does, then our credibility becomes weak with a client, and it affects everything we try to do with them. And so I see this happening a lot, and I get really concerned when I see it happening, because if not checked, okay, it can turn into this, where we're exaggerating or out and out being deceptive. Okay, now I'm pretty much sure nobody on the webinar suffers from this, but let me tell you, there's kind of this progression, if you'll see here on the page, that one is we don't live up to our commitments about time, or we start over-promising and under-delivering in order to sell more, or we start overstating and use puffery or language that's not accurate to try to sell more, or we even fall into that category where we exaggerate or deceive customers in order to sell more. So that's kind of a continuum that I see, and obviously all of those can be dangerous. And like I said, there may be nobody on the call that struggles with the last two that I put up there, but my best guess is we know somebody who does. All right, so let me just do this real quick check-in. How many of you either are struggling with any of these three that I haven't checked in with you on, or know somebody who does? All right, so you won't be throwing yourself under the bus if you raise your hand. But how many of you struggle with it or know somebody that struggles with these things here? Yeah. I see. I'm not surprised. For all of those that are on the call, it's probably, I'm scrolling down, 90% of us either struggle with it or know somebody that does. And quite frankly, it can be the kiss of death to a sales career, to a entrepreneurial career, to lapse into this, particularly if at first it gets us some success, because eventually, while it may get us some short-term success, it will lead to our long-term ruin. And when I work with clients on a coaching basis who are struggling with this, I want to make a point that we have a hard time sleeping at night because none of the things that we have gotten through these kinds of processes really belongs to us. And we never can fully enjoy everything that comes to us because of the work that we do, the sales that we create for our customers. And eventually it will wind up creating a less than stellar career because the word gets out and we have no credibility with our clients, which is everything as far as I'm concerned. All right, so that's where I see a struggle. Let's talk about why we struggle with those things. All right, here's some reasons why I think we're struggling. First thing is just poorly organized. Our time and overcommitment and under-delivering tend to come from being poorly organized. And I'm going to give you some solutions for that here in just a little bit. All right. And some of you have already chimed in on the message side. By the way, if you want to share a message with me or ask a question, just type it in the question down there. But some of you already chimed in a while ago. 2 or 3 of you did. I don't struggle with time. I struggle with managing time. And I'm going to give you some resources for that here in just a second. Or are we just overcommit? You know, we've gotten so busy. We don't know how to say no. We don't know how to manage our time and manage priorities. If you've never listened to the webinar that we typically do right around the end of the year, you can go back on the salesgladiators.com and look back in December. We do a webinar every year, and it's titled 4 Questions to Ask Yourself to Make 2015 Your Best Year Ever. And we ask 4 questions of ourselves individually and collectively, personally and professionally. It's a process Chrissy and I have used for maybe 7 or 8 years now. We go away for about 3 or 4 days. We take flip charts. We don't do anything else. That's all we do. It takes us 3 or 4 days just to do it because she's got her business. I've got my business. She's got her personal life. I've got my personal life. And then we have ministry work, marriage work that we do together. So we have a lot of things to process through. And we ask ourselves what's working and how do we do more of it? What's not working and how do we get rid of it? Those are the first 2 questions. And those 2 questions really help us zero in on making sure that we do not overcommit. We sit down and talk about what are the things we're going to do this year that we want to do that's working. How do we do more of them? And then we carve out the stuff we don't want to do anymore, that we need to get rid of because it's not giving us a good return on investment compared to the other things that we do in our life, and or it's a complete waste of time. So we're either trying to figure out how to make it a return on investment or we get rid of it altogether. So if this is an area you struggle in, I would encourage you, go back to that webinar on the website and check it out. I think it'll be very, very helpful for you. But overcommitting, not learning how to say no and everything is a big deal. And by the way, quick little note there, Christy and I are using this weekend. I'm not telling you this to brag, but I'm telling you because it's just we just landed a massive consulting project. It is huge, and we're trying to figure out how do we continue to manage all the things that are important to us. I'll just give you a quick little idea for those of you who know me as a speaker. I will not do any more speaking engagements until we get more resources on this consulting project, which is going to take us a little bit of time to get revved up. So I'm carving that out. But the thing I'm not carving out is this stuff. You guys, all of our Sales Gladiator stuff, our podcasts and webinars is not going away, but we're going to sit down this weekend and really kind of carve that out. We've already got about 3 or 4 virtual assistants online. They're going to start taking over everything that happens after I finish the webinar. We'll literally turn that over to somebody and they'll do it. So we're going to sit down and do a mid-year deal to make sure that we don't get caught up in overcommitting. So if that's a challenge that you have, and this is one of the areas you struggle, that's something I'm going to encourage you to do. And we'll come back to that here in just a little bit. So the next one is we tend to overstate or use puffery to overcompensate. If we don't feel like our product is good enough, if we don't feel like our service is good enough, if we don't feel like our company is good enough, and if we don't feel like we're competent enough on a personal level to compete with our competitors out there, then we can overcompensate by overstating and using puffery. Now, when I see that, my first thought is, okay, is this the fact that the product isn't up to speed, or it's not what it should be, or is the sales rep not who they should be? And I would tell you that my best guess is 8 out of 10 times it's because the sales rep is compensating for their lack of skills or their lack of self-confidence or self-esteem. And again, I told you we're going to get a little bit deeper here today, but if you're working with somebody that's like this or you struggle with it yourself, I want us to get a handle on kind of where this is coming from. And this gets really tough. I would tell you of those 5 core skills we talked about to kick this thing off, the 2 toughest ones to deal with are resiliency and personal accountability. They're tough to change. They're really difficult. And it's because it's very deep-seated in most cases. So I see overcompensation. That's one of the reasons we struggle. And then at the end of it, I see a false sense of worthiness. And here's what I mean by that. I don't mean that they have a false sense of how amazing they are. I think their false sense is thinking they're not amazing, that they're not capable, that they're not able. To me, that's a false sense of worthiness, because I believe we're all amazing. I think we're all extraordinary. I think we're all capable. I think we all have potential that we haven't even tapped into yet. But yet something in our background, something we've experienced, something that has happened probably long before I ever came into contact with them, has taught them that they're not able, they're not capable, they're not worthy. And so when it gets tough, then it's they tend to shy away from that, and being deceptive or exaggerating is a way of compensating. Now, like I said, I don't like to get too deep there, but I want to make sure that we're touching on that, because that's part of where this is coming from. And if you know somebody that's like this, or if you struggle with it, I'm here to tell you that the only way out of it is to get a real sense of what your worth is, to really understand how amazing you are, to be willing to do the things that have to be done to be successful, but understand you're capable. And one of the things I love about sales is that anybody can learn how to do this. Anybody can learn how to master this. You don't have to have any amazing educational background or a PhD. Those certainly doesn't hurt, but you don't have to have that to be great in sales. But there are some things we have to learn, and that's one of the things I love about sales. I see people who don't think they're capable become extraordinarily capable and have the lifestyle they want. So anyway, let me pause right now and take a little bit of a breath myself. And we kind of got a little deep there. We're going to go back there in a minute again. Any questions at this point in time? Let me see if you got any questions or any feedback. Just type into the section down there. It says questions on your dashboard. Let me see if we got anything we need to answer. Oh, yeah. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right. Well, you asked the question. I'll try to answer it. Jim, what changed for you? Oh, mercy. Well, let me give you the answer that I think is plenty enough to hear. First thing is tons and tons of failure on my part, not in things that I could control. Like I was an overachiever in basketball, overachiever in baseball, overachiever in academics and things like that, all trying to prove my worthiness growing up. Got married, had a divorce within a couple of years as it got tough. Got married again, As soon as it got tough, I'd already had a son. Those of you know Jason, he's from my second marriage. It got tough again. I quit and ran again. That's the easiest way I can put it. Got into third marriage, married Christy, who I've now been married to for over 28 years. Started down the same road again, but I'm looking at an amazing woman and an amazing son, and I'm looking in the mirror going, this is just not working anymore. I'm going to have to fix this. And went through a lot of counseling and therapy and hard work and decided who I wanted to be. And I can tell you that I'm not anywhere near where I'd like to be yet, but I'm a good man. And it became something that became important to me. And so it can be done. Great support system in my wife and her encouragement through the years. And then I've got a son that I think is extraordinary. And I'm so glad to have been a good role model for him. At the end of the day, the best way I can say that, I just decided I didn't want to be that guy anymore. And that's the best I can tell you. So I hope that's a good enough answer. And I'm not seeing anybody dropping off the webinar. So I guess I didn't freak anybody out with that answer. Oh, dadgummit. I'm sorry. Hey, Sherry, do me a favor. Type that again. I reached up to look at your question there, or your comment, and I deleted it. My bad. So, hey, thanks, Laura. I appreciate that. Yeah. We are all human. And you know what I appreciate about that is that one of the things that you'll find when we struggle and we realize we're human is we tend to give other people the benefit of the doubt and let them be human as well. But I can tell you that's certainly been a part of what I've learned from it. But it also allows me to hold people accountable for the fact that their humanness makes them able to overcome it. So yeah, I appreciate that encouragement. And we want to give people the benefit of the doubt, and we want to, we want to help them with that. So, all right, let me see here. Let me read this. I don't read it out loud until I know what it says. Okay. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Sherry, I'm going to tell them your name because, this is a great comment and a great point here. It says, in your struggle, I don't see mine. I struggle because of the details involved in what I need to do since I'm not a detail person. That might fall under poorly organized in that I'm not breaking down my task to the lowest denomination. Does that make sense? Absolutely. Absolutely. There is, it's kind of why I had this continuum. And I was trying to figure out how to teach this. There's a continuum that starts with, hey, life is tough and I can't do everything. And first thing is self-awareness that you're not good at details is awesome. That's huge. And to be aware of that and say, okay, that's not something I'm good at is the first step. As Dr. Phil says, we can't change what we won't acknowledge. Now, I don't think it really falls under poorly organized, as you said in your question and statement here. What that falls under is that we can't all be all things to all people. There's no way. So what we have to do is you have to figure out what am I really good at and how do I focus in on that and leverage my skills? And then what do I do to augment that in order to make sure that the things I'm not good at don't create a problem for me in my business? And that's actually being very accountable. To acknowledge it, to be aware of it, and to say I need to do something about it. That's very, very accountable, and that's really what we're driving at here. If we struggle with something and it's at one of these lower levels or one of these things, it's still a big problem. We own it, but then we got to go, okay, what am I going to do about it? And I'll just tell you, Sherry, you and I share the same challenge there. I am the worst detail guy on the planet. And those of you who've been around me, some of you guys know me for a while. I used to have Colleen McMath, that was my admin, and she was incredible with details. And we had Eileen Danan, who was our admin. She was incredible with details. And now I get all the details done through virtual assistants. I have a VA that does all of my bookkeeping. I have a VA that does all of my infusion stuff, soft stuff. I have a VA that does all of my web stuff. We're getting ready to hire a VA that's going to do all of our podcasting stuff. Literally from the moment we finish recording it, it's going to go to somebody. They're going to do everything for us. And so, Sherry, I would tell you that if that's what you struggle with, VAs are a great resource out there for some of those details. And if that's helpful, or if you want to know some of the folks that we're working with that might help you, I'd be glad to do that. So you're on the right track there. It does absolutely make sense. Now you got to go, okay, I recognize it, I own it. Now what can I do about it? And that's what I would encourage you to do. So awesome, good deal, good question there. Goes along podcast 32. Absolutely, knowing your right sales job can help prevent some of those. Absolutely, Todd. If you go back to podcast 32, which by the way, we reproduced and we're going to be uploading because it sounded terrible, and a really nice guy pointed that out to me. I appreciate that. But it's really making sure you get into the position where you don't have to do as much any more than that than you have to. And getting the right sales job will certainly help with that. So appreciate that comment there, Todd. Outstanding. All right, guys. So that's kind of why we struggle. Let's look like, what can we do? All right, what do we do here? What can we do? And I'm not a big fan of this, but I just had to put this up here. I'm working with a client right now. He acknowledges the challenges that he has. We talk about what needs to be done, and then he'll say, okay, this week I'm going to try to do that. And here's the problem with try. All right, try could be, all right, I thought about it for 30 seconds. Or try could be, I bled, broke bones, sweat, rolled in the dirt, did everything I could think of to do this week to try to accomplish that goal or try to change my habit or whatever it happened. I fought it. I put my entire life into it. So try it's not definitive enough. Okay, I'm either going to do it or not do it. And I just kind of like this, Yoda thing here, do or do not. There is no try. All right. And so, great philosopher, yes. You know what, Todd? I thought the exact same thing. Todd put on here, no greater philosopher than Yoda. Absolutely. All right. I think this is a great mantra here. Now, again, doesn't mean that we accomplish everything. And it doesn't mean that if we start out to do something and we don't get there that we failed. It's just that we don't start off with try. I'm either going to do it or I'm going to not even try to do it. I'm not even going to attempt to do it. So the commitment has got to be, I'm going to do this thing. And the most important thing we can do is say, what I say I'm going to do, I do. That's the most important thing we can do. So Laura typed in my personal motto. Oh, good. I'm glad I used that thing then. You guys got a kick out of it, looks like. All right. So here's the deal. When time matters. Now, let me tell you why I put that when up there. I am a Lombardi time guy. And if you're not familiar with what that means, Vince Lombardi had a deal about practices and things like that. And Lombardi time was, if they started at 12 o'clock and you weren't there at 15 minutes till 12, you were late on Lombardi time. I'm a Lombardi time kind of guy. When I do these webinars, I'm sitting here in front of the screen at 10 o'clock. All right. And I have everything ready to go at 10 o'clock. If I'm doing a speaking engagement for somebody tomorrow morning that starts at 9 o'clock, I'm there in the room at 8 o'clock. If I've got to be at the airport for a flight at 4 o'clock, I'm typically there by 2:30. I am a Lombardi time. I'm always ahead of time. Now, my wife, Christy, who some of you know is an incredible partner in life, and I love her with all my heart, she has a completely different time frame. We call it Christy time. And it sounds like this, all right? We live in Sugar Land, Texas, and Christy will say, I'm going to go to Intercontinental Airport, guys, which is probably about an hour's drive. And then I'm going to go out to Katy, which is another hour's drive. And then I'm going to go down to Galveston, which is about a 2-hour drive. And I'll be back here in about 45 minutes. All right? Now, it's not that she doesn't intend to be on time. She just doesn't have a good grasp of time and space. And it's just not a skill set she possesses. She possesses tons of other amazing ones. That's just not a skill set that she possesses. So you can imagine we struggle with time quite a bit in our relationship. Early on, it used to frustrate the crud out of me. But here's where I'm at today. There are certain times, like if we're going to a party that starts at 7:30, we don't have to be sitting in the, out by the curb at a quarter till in order to be on time. All right, we can be there at 7-ish. I've learned what seven-ish means, and when seven-ish is okay. And so I will live longer because I've adopted some of Christy time in my life. But what I'll tell you is the reverse is true as well. Christy has kind of adopted some of Lombardi time when it comes to things that are important to her, like work or when we're doing conferences together or speaking together. She's more Lombardi time now than ever before because she realizes her credibility was being called into question, not because she lacked credibility, but because she's a bad time manager. So I heard this quote, and it really was pretty cool. It was a speaker that was speaking at Texas Christian University. And I was there watching him speak, and he said to consistently be on time, you have to be willing to consistently be 30 minutes early. And he was telling students that were getting ready to graduate from Texas Christian University that as they got out into the world, one of the things that was important was integrity and character. And one of the things that spoke highly about your integrity was being on time. And then he made this statement. It was on a slide. It said to consistently be on time, you have to be willing to consistently be 30 minutes early. Okay? Now, some of you guys know me pretty well. Would you be surprised to know who that was? It's my son. And I did not give him that quote. That was one he came up with on his own. And I'm going to tell you what, that is a great way to look at time. If we're going to become accountable for our time, if we're going to have integrity in the time commitments that we make, then we've got to be, when this time stuff is, we've got to be able to look at our clock and say, if I've got to be there at this certain time, I either need to set the time a little bit later because I'm jammed up, or I need to leave earlier to get where I need to be. And that tends to be my wife's biggest challenge, is that she just can't calculate how long it takes. And so consequently, she leaves at what is the last minute, and then something happens, she doesn't get there. Thank you. Very nice, you guys. Very kind of you. Those of you who know Jason, those are some sweet. They appreciate that. That's very kind of you. Laura said the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. You know, Laura, actually, this apple fell a long way from the tree. Jason just got his MBA at SMU's Cox School of Business this past weekend. He is so far ahead of where I was when I was his age. It is just fun to watch. Better man, better businessman, smarter, very accomplished, and very, very proud of him. And I like using this quote. Sometimes I think people think it's a little self-serving, but I think it's accurate. So when time matters, to consistently be on time, we have to be willing to consistently be 30 minutes early. I hope that helped you guys a little bit with time. Now, for those of you who wrote down, Sherry, this may be helpful for you. A couple of you wrote down about getting organized and everything. I'm going to tell you the best priority management tool system I've ever seen is Stephen Covey's First Things First. If that's an area that you struggle in, I would encourage you today. Unfortunately, it's not available on Audible. You literally have to go buy the book, which in this case is probably best. If you've ever tried to listen to Covey, he's almost impossible because his stuff is so deep that I find myself, if I'm listening to 7 Habits or something like that, I have to retract back and say, what did he just say? So the book is probably the best route to go. If you do struggle from an organizational standpoint, and it's creating those first 2 levels of challenge of time and or overcommitting, this is the resource. It's simple, it's easy, it's executable, and I'm going to encourage you that if that's your struggle, that you would grab this particular book and use it. Use the 4 quadrants. I can do them in my head now, but I still make a list of all the things that I do every day in order to be more effective. And if something comes up, I need to add it to my list. I do that just to be aware of what my commitments are. So I love this book. I'm sure many of you read it, and I think it's outstanding. All right, going a little long today, so let me see here. Let's dive down into those last couple of steps there. 2 steps to deal with the last 2 things. One is we just have to come to the point where we say, I do what I say I'm going to do. All right, I don't want to be that guy anymore. I don't want to be that gal anymore. I don't want my business to be run like that anymore. Starting today, I draw a line in the sand. I do what I say I am going to do. And we just that's just a decision we make. Now, is it going to go perfect from there? No, but we have to make a decision of where we're going in order to and focus on getting there. And then step two is this: make peace with whatever past has caused us to feel unworthy or not capable or not able. And if you struggle with those last two areas, and it's been something that's been ongoing for a while, there's some past there. I can tell you, I just know that from studying and working as if you don't know, I'm a master certified coach, all that work, all the counseling Christine and I do, there's something there in the back. But first thing is to say, look, I just do what I'm saying I'm going to do. From now on, that becomes important to me, and I'm going to hold myself accountable for that. And that I don't want to be that guy anymore. I don't want to be that gal anymore. I don't want that to be my business model anymore. And then in order to sustain that long term and to really enjoy the whole idea of I do what I say I'm going to do, then you got to make peace with whatever causes that challenge there. All right. Questions, thoughts, comments? I know we got a little deep today. Hope that didn't freak anybody out or hurt anybody's feelings. By the way, if you are dealing with somebody who really struggles with this personal accountability, know this: there's something in the past there. There's something in their history, some kind of event that caused them to feel unworthy or incapable or unable. And I'm not going to encourage you to dig into that. It's probably best done by a professional, but understand that it comes from it doesn't come out of a void. People don't do that because they want to. They do that because they don't know any other way. They don't have any other way to compensate. All right, so here's a couple things to do this week. Step number one, here's what I want you to do. I want you to watch for times that we fail to do what we say we're going to do. All right, we didn't get there when we said we were going to get there. We didn't deliver the product that we said we were going to deliver. I didn't get the email out to the client I said I was going to get the email out to. I want you to make a list of things this week when you fail to keep a commitment. I want you to ask yourself, why did I fail? Was it one of the first two areas, and what do I need to do about that? Or is it down in those other two lower categories, and what do I need to do about that? And by the way, quick little note here, if you want to talk about it, if you want somebody to visit with, that'll give you a little bit more what to do next kind of stuff, I'll be glad to talk with you. You guys know how to get a hold of me. You can email me. You can call our office. I'll be glad to visit with you if you're struggling with somebody that, or you know somebody is, you want to get some help for. And then the next thing, if you haven't already, and this is very, very self-serving, I apologize for this, but I'm going to be a little more assertive when it comes to some of these things. If you haven't already, go like our Facebook page in the Sales Arena. We post some things there that we don't do on the webinars, that we don't do in the newsletters, another place. Would appreciate it. You just go like our Facebook page and share it with other people. We appreciate that. If you haven't already, subscribe to our podcast. Go to iTunes in the Sales Arena. As Todd said a while ago, what we did in podcast number 32 is along the lines of how do you make sure you get the right sales job so that you're in the sweet spot when it comes to skill sets. And this whole month, we've done podcasts about mindset. And yesterday, I think we cranked out a really good one. Just now hit this morning, and I noticed this morning I was checking on Libsyn, and the dadgum thing blew up. So I would encourage you go to iTunes and subscribe to the podcast in the Sales Arena, or you can find it on our webpage. And it won't be on our webpage till later on today, but that's a great place to find it as well. And if you're not used to listening to podcasts, then I think you're missing out. This one, I think it's a good one. I would encourage you to give it a go, give it a try. Or if you're not yet following us, follow us on Twitter. We also send everything out there. So another good way of Twitter's your channel of choice, and we can do that. All right. Any questions before we sign off here? Anybody? Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. I was a little worried about today. I was afraid how you guys would diving this deep, and you guys are very kind. Appreciate that. All right, I won't go that deep very often, but at times we will. And again, this is some very kind of personal for me, so we'll do it when we have to. Oh, thank you. You guys are awesome. All right, so our hope is always the same. We've got some new people here today. If you're new in sales, we want to help you build the foundation so that you can have the sales career and the life you want. If you've been at it a while, you're stuck in the middle, you're struggling, which I think we all can find ourselves in for some time. We want to help you there, help you get out of the middle. I don't want you to be in the middle. I want you to experience everything that you hope for and take you to the top so that you can be the best of the best. And if you're at the top and you're trying to figure out how to stay there, we want to make sure we give you some ideas that can help you continue to build your business day in and day out. So again, thank you so much. I appreciate you guys. things are going great. Things are really rocking and rolling on the website and on the podcast, and here on the webinars. The numbers are growing every week. So thank you so much for all you do, for sharing it with other people. I hope you have a great week out there, gang. Go do something significant this week that'll help you build the sales career and the life that you want. Hope you guys have a great week.